arcs and the story and the heart, and what was foremost on your mind?
Well, anybody who's seen the first film knows it ends with Jake opening his eyes, which is obviously metaphorical and literal. He's transferred into, a not me body forever. So what happened the next morning at breakfast when we were sitting around with tea? So I started working forward and figuring out what his reality was like over the next few years. And I just kept coming back to family, having kids, and what that does to you. So you got this character that was so fearless that he jumps off his bird onto a great Inocrix, the legendary apex predator. And he's fearless, right? And he even says it to Ava. He says, I'll stand and play. What he's saying is, I'll die for this. And Nigeria is just as brave as him. But what happens when you have kids? Can you afford to run around and be that kind of, mythic hero then? When you got one set example, you don't want your sons to grow up to be warriors and get killed. Or maybe you do, but that's a decision, right? And do I continue to try to save my people, save my planet, or do I save my family? And that's the crisis point that he comes to. So what's the head on that? And I brought in the other screenwriters, and we sat in the room for 6 months, and we broke the story across whiteboards and went around the room for Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5. No, it was a big project. So, we've been out of the marketplace for a long time. We've been setting up these other films. It turns out to be quite an epic saga as we follow this family and this guy that's after them, and their relationships change and morph, and all sorts of crazy stuff happens. Really look forward to that part.
The other thing about Jake's character and his growth is I feel like his finding the Mechanic and finding this other aspect of Pandora is in some ways symbolic of him finding another aspect of himself, right? As he's going through fatherhood, as he's going through another change in his life, this is another aspect of himself kind of represented.
Right. Well, Sam is a father of 3 boys, and Zoe is the mother of 3 boys. And I've always said I really appreciate the depth of your commitment to acting. Thank you. You went and had a bunch of kids so you can prep for the character. That's dedication. I don't think she cares. It's not having kids, she didn't care what your reason was. Women have their own imperative, right? No, but coming to it as parents, I think you and Zoe was significant in sync. You came to it, as a parent, but also a parent of a daughter, and you'd been a teenager yourself. So it seemed to align nicely, well, we all were, right? It seemed to align nicely with what you guys brought to it the second time around, which was very unique from your characters. Really was completely different character. And even Stephen, when I said, we're doing this, he was my slang, by the way. Stephen is for paddles like this. So, when we talked to slang, that we were going again, he said, all right, I'm open-minded, because he was dead as shit with 2 arrows in his chest. But bringing him back as this kind of imprinted clone of his first character, that created some serious problems for the character. So we were going for more depth, more complexity with him and with everybody. And Sig was just a launch of a whole new character who's also got a lot of complexity. And we just leaned into all that stuff. We just loved it all.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. Sam, and this amazing acting process for all of you, it's phenomenal. And Sam, Jake again is our guide through Pandora, and as Jim was just saying, obviously the parenthood aspect is a big part of him. What were some of the other keys to him as you envision the changes that were going on, and how did that kind of affect your performance in many ways?
It's about a man learning to listen to the kids and getting his true power from them. I think the scene where she says it's not a squad, I think that stops to find another way. I think we were talking about this today. In the first one, Grace is like a matriarch figure to Jake. And then in this one, Jake is quite clearly the dad to Kiri. So there was an interesting dynamic that we experienced as actors in
obviously also a relationship movie because Manchuri and Jake are kind of going through a stage of their life. Let's kind of walk over and let's have a round of applause because there's always Aldana, who's phenomenal. And I think the way the two of you and Zoe kind of worked on that because of the notion of the way Jake is seen by Manchuri is a little different in this film. He is recognizing something, a danger that she maybe needs to come to a certain point. Let's kind of talk about how the two of you work on that relationship in some ways.
A couple of things, the way Jim allows us to play, the way the performance capture stage allows you to play, informs the direction you take, and with Zoe you bounce off it. So I really like exploring with Zoe, and I think what you then discover, I've known her a long time, so without even us having to discuss character arcs and things like that, I think we discovered that she's definitely fire, he's definitely earth, we're surrounded by water, there's something very place and elemental for it that I really gave me a touchstone to come back to. You know, she's a fierce actress because she's fearless, and the performance capture space allows you to be fearless. It allows you to kind of leave everything away and inhabit a warrior, father, a 14-year-old. You know, it allows you just to dive in and create, and that's how we kind of work on our relationship. You know, she obviously has conversations with Jim. I would have too. I work a bit differently to Zoe. I discover as I go, and then when we come together, we just trust each other.
I think she does too. I think she discovers as she goes. I remember the one scene where you have to convince her to leave.
Yeah.
I just let you guys just fire off each other. We didn't even get to the script until like the fourth or fifth take. It was just go. And it starts with, all right, two people in a long-term relationship, marriage, kind of circling each other, and how you gonna bring up the subject, and then what are the trigger points, and then how does she react, and then how do you try to keep her calm? It went nuts.
It's weird because you think of something so technical as this, and we say Jim's very, very detailed. But as a director, he's a great acting director. He lets you explore. That's what he's after. Is kind of whatever's going to come, this alchemy from the scene, the flame. And then in something like that, then later on, it'll come out as we film. If he discovered that, look, the scene works great between you and Zoe, but I want to see it from the point of view of the kids, because that's going to include them in this journey. And to me, that wasn't on the page. It's something that makes me a genius and makes me go, yeah, now I understand what we're in.
But you wouldn't have acted that anyway, because you didn't know, Jake didn't know they were there. Yeah, but it hit me later. Actually, after we'd done the scene, I thought, what's the scariest thing when you're kids, to hear your parents argue about something really important that affects you. And because you rely on them to always be guiding the ship, and for them to be arguing is really terrible. Like if the family's going to make a move.
Yeah, and like so much that is important in the story is about seeing and about changing your perspective, being able to see another point of view. Sigourney, wow, she is phenomenal, and 14, yes, and I just want to hear what your response was when Jim contacted you about this, what your research process was, and how you kind of got into the whole mindset of being 14.
I've known Jim a long time. He knows me pretty well. So we had lunch in 2010, and we were actually trying to think of Jim had this idea of a girl character who had some relationship to Grace. And just the idea of a girl who felt more comfortable in the forest with the animals and the plants and people made a lot of sense to me. And especially at that age. And then, you know, luckily I had time to kind of unearth my 14-year-old, and which was good and bad. And then I did have time also to go to LaGuardia uptown and just sit in on classes, just to hear the pitch of the kids' voices, and just to sort of watch their posture and how they move through the environment, and you know, hear their confidence and hear their shyness and hear all these different extremes that happen in that wonderful age. You know, the kids feel things so strongly at that age, and I feel like Jim created a character in Fury who has those very strong colors. And, you know, she can spot hypocrisy straight up, and so I got so much inspiration from the script. And then once we got to the volume, it's kind of a magical place, because once you step into that world, it's like an early theater rehearsal, and you're in your black leotard, whatever, and the other actors are so good, and I felt, I was terrified, but at the same time, I felt like, okay, this is the place. You just got to step out there and let her come out. And thankfully, she did. I really wasn't sure it was going to work, but every day I trusted it more, and I had wonderful parents like him who could actually look at me and believe that I was 14. So it was, we became a family, playing a family, and there was a lot of trust, and there was, some big challenges, but, Jim he always gives you the time to, explore and see exactly what it is, and he always says if there's anything you want to draw, so that it feels really thorough, and you really feel like you've gone to the place you needed to go.
The city was very generous with the other younger actors, these teenagers down to, our youngest being 7. But you always did it from here. You never really broke here. You never like, hey, here, kid. It wasn't like that. But she spent so much time. It was just building up those bonds of trust with the other young actors, to where they didn't think about you as Sigourney Weaver. They just thought about you as
That disappeared. But, we took classes together in the sign language underwater, and the parkour, and the knife fighting, and the, boot camp, etc. And I think we were working so hard, everyone just forgot about all these unimportant things like how old I was.
And what a mega star you
That obviously, like, sort of finding, like, how to bring out your inner 14-year-old in some ways was an acting challenge. Was there also a process, though, of kind of tucking away the adults, so that as you're going through that performance and you're preparing it, were there moments when you said, oh wait, this is something, whether it's a gesture or an inflection or something that an adult would do. I need to kind of put that aside and find the 14-year-old, kind of make sure that that's not kind of a side by side with the 14-year-old. You know what I mean?
I think by the time I got to do it, I had kind of I had a way of preparing on stage where I sort of replaced myself with Kiri so completely that I think she would have been freaked out if she felt any kind of adult thing coming at her. And so I was able, and Sam was talking to this too, so I was saying, you're able to let it go. And although it's a very interesting question, I always felt like the situations, the rehearsal, whatever it was, I was just free to absolutely act in the moment on a lot of sensory things. There's so much going on. They're being uprooted. She's losing her best friend. There's so much going on. There was time for these broad strokes and primary colors, and then in other scenes we do much more detail. But it was just like this free space where your imagination just took you into this story, and a really cool experience for actors, and not a technological experience, a really freeing experience. I just want the actors to hear that, because it doesn't get in the way. It kind of gives you wings, because you don't have to do much. All you have to do is just have it here, and it kind of emanates out, and somehow it's built out from what we feel deep inside, and you don't have to make anything clear. It's just there, and this technology seems to catch it. And anyway, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. She is a fascinating and complex character, Curious, and Stephen, so is Colonel Miles Ford. She is also fascinating and complex, because this is the guy who hated the Na'vi and then finds himself one, and he still hates them. He is just driven by fear and hate and war. Talk to us about the shades of his villainy that you wanted to bring out in this one, and what some of those conversations were like with Jim initially.
The shades of his villainy. I rarely think of in terms of villainy. I think that, you know, it probably is the case that we are all the heroes of our own narrative, or very much so. I think, however, if he is called a villain, or in this case he's called a demon, I think that's water off a very, very tough duck's back. He doesn't give a shit what you think of me. He is, it's a true pleasure. It's a role I wear easily, which is a little scary, I suppose. But I enjoy tremendously advocating on his behalf, and you know, the fact is, without that darkness, I don't think the other characters would be quite as shining and radiant as they are. So his function is inevitable. The really interesting thing to me is how the radiance of this world, Pandora, begins to operate on him. This is what has he brought with him? What courage has he brought with him? It seems to me that he is a man, when he first arrived at Pandora years ago, already through the wars he had been in, he's cauterized away emotion. The wars that he fought on Earth were filthy wars, dirty wars, wars with children. So any motivations that he had to join up, be all that he could be, that proved to be complete nonsense, in my opinion. He became what he became. He lost a lot of feeling, it seems to me. And so what happens to him, and so he was in the right place up there. He made, what he tried to do is he was a square peg in a round hole. He kept trying to fit Pandora